Huh. A good day to all you beautifully delusional chaos seekers tuning in. Yeah, you. The one they swore would fold. Come here. Let me talk to you for a sec. You know what's funny? Like really funny. How you, the kid they doubted, the name they dragged, the one they treated like background noise. You're suddenly the main character everybody's scared to mispronounce wrong. It's wild, isn't it? How they pushed you aside, whispered behind your back, wrote cute little lies about you, like it was their personal bedtime hobby. And now they can't even make eye contact, 'cause you flipped the whole damn script without asking for permission. You got 'em eating their own lies, coughing on 'em, choking on every rumor they swore would bury you. And now the whole damn city, your city, every block, every corner, every hallway, every online timeline, every circle they used to laugh about you in. Yeah, those same places are now saying your name with respect, with hesitation, with fear, with a little bit of "please don't embarrass me" in their voice. You know, it's crazy. People love to talk when you're small. They love to run their mouths when they think you don't have any power. They clap the loudest when you look lost. But the minute you stop playing their game and start playing your own, suddenly everybody wants to rewrite the past. Suddenly they're all, yeah, we always knew you'd make it. We were just worried about you. We supported you, remember? No. You remember exactly who they were and exactly how they moved. You remember every fake smile, every backhand compliment, every joke that was secretly a jab. Every time they treated you like some extra in their story. Every time they underestimated you so bad, they actually convinced themselves you were finished. But you weren't done. You were loading, quietly, patiently, uncomfortably consistent. You were becoming the version of you that scares them. And now look at you. Look at the way they jump when you walk in. Look at the way they shut up when your name drops. Look at the way they move like they don't want any smoke. They look stupid as fuck, don't they? The whole clan, all the loudmouths, all the doubters, all the ones who tried to clown you for sport. And the best part? You didn't even have to expose them. You didn't have to clap back. You didn't have to scream. All you had to do was win. Win quietly, win loudly, win consistently. Just win in a way that makes their whole personality malfunction. 'Cause that's the thing nobody tells you. Your success is the biggest revenge, the loudest apology, the hardest slap in the face, the sharpest mirror anyone can hold up to their own bullshit. You became the reminder that their opinions never had any real value. You became the proof that their facts were just jealousy in disguise. You became the nightmare they accidentally created by underestimating the wrong person. And now they gotta live with the reality that you didn't just survive their hate. You grew from it. You mastered it. You sculpted yourself from the chaos they tried to bury you under. And the city sees it. The people see it. Everyone sees it. Respect isn't something you begged for. Respect is something they had no choice but to give you. Because your presence changed. Your aura changed. Your tone changed. Your energy walked in before you did. And suddenly they're all trying to catch up. You became undeniable, unignorable, uncomfortable to their egos, a walking contradiction to every lie they ever told about you. And now they're studying your moves, copying your style, mirroring your attitude, trying to act like they've been on your side this whole time. But you see through it. You always have. You know who clapped for you because they love you and who clapped because they didn't want to look stupid when you won. It's kinda poetic, actually. How the same people who dragged your name now whisper it like a warning. How the same ones who tried to overshadow you now stand in your shadow just to feel important. How the same ones who laughed at you now adjust their tone so you don't laugh at them. But the truth is, you didn't change for them. You didn't rise for them. You didn't improve to prove anything to them. You did it for you. For that version of you that used to cry alone. For that version that stayed up overthinking. For that version that carried all the blame. For that version they tried to break. You carried that version to the finish line with you. You didn't abandon them. You honored them. You became the hero that younger you begged for. And now the world, your world, has to adjust. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Because you shifted the entire frequency around you. Because you walked into your power in a way nobody expected, but everybody now respects. And the wild part is you can feel it. You can literally feel the shift in the air when you walk into a room. People pretend vibes aren't real, but you feel it every day. How the energy flips the second you step foot anywhere. How conversations get quieter. How eyes get weird. How everybody's suddenly acting like they've been respecting you from day one. It's funny, right? They used to talk over you. Now they can't even talk around you without checking if you're listening. You're that kind of presence people prepare for. You're that kind of pressure that makes insecure folks check themselves. You're that kind of reminder that, yo, maybe all that shit talking wasn't smart after all. And listen, people don't react like that unless they know they messed up somewhere. And deep down, they know damn well where they messed up. They doubted the wrong person. They gambled against the wrong soul. They played with someone who wasn't even in their league to begin with. You're walking proof that their lies couldn't hold you. Matter of fact, you turned their lies into fuel, into ammo, into this unstoppable energy you carry around like armor nobody can crack. And it gets under their skin, you know. 'Cause it's one thing to be proven wrong. It's another thing to be proven wrong publicly. While the city they wanted to turn against you is suddenly riding for you harder than they ever rode for themselves. Every corner, every alley, every crew. People that never met you now speak your name with weight. Like, yeah, that one. They different. You unintentionally became the blueprint that exposes everyone who moved shady. And, people hate that kind of truth. They hate when your growth shines a light on their bullshit. They hate when your elevation forces them to face the fact that they weren't rooting for you. Not because you weren't capable, but because they never believed someone like you could climb past them. And then you did, casually, effortlessly at times, messily at times, but consistently. And that consistency, it made them crumble. They talk less now. They stare more. They act nice in that uncomfortable, overly polite way people get when guilt is eating them alive. It's kinda hilarious how guilt makes people suddenly remember their manners. They used to clown you with confidence, but there's nothing funny about how quiet they are these days. And look at you, walking with this calm heaviness, this quiet strength, this I've been through hell and came back sharper aura. You didn't even have to announce your comeback. Your existence did the talking for you. Your aura walked into every room like, remember all that shit you said? Yeah, I remember too. People swear you changed, but the truth is, you stopped shrinking. You stopped watering yourself down. You stopped dimming your own glow to make them comfortable. And that's what shook them. You outgrew their version of you. You stepped out of the box they tried to bury you in. You became the version of yourself they prayed would never show up. They see it in your face, in the way your eyes don't flinch anymore, in the way your voice doesn't tremble, in the way your footsteps sound like someone who's done apologizing for existing. And, people who benefited from your silence hate when you finally speak with your chest. People who fed off your insecurity hate when you learn your worth. People who thought you were easy to break hate when you start moving like someone who's impossible to imitate. That's why they look stupid as fuck every time they try to pretend like they were supporting you. That's why their faces look tight every time your name comes up in a room full of people who respect you. That's why they smile like their jaw is locked every time someone praises you right in front of their face. They can't stand it. They can't stand how much you grew. They can't stand how much you healed. They can't stand how much you proved without ever trying to prove anything. They can't stand the fact that your existence, your story, your resilience, your whole glow-up became a billboard exposing every lie they ever told about you. And you feel it in yourself, too. This new version of you that doesn't flinch when life swings. This you that doesn't beg for understanding. This you that doesn't chase validation. This you that doesn't shrink to fit the room. You became someone who doesn't need their approval, and that's the part that cut them deeper than any clapback ever could. Because once you stop needing people, they start realizing they never had real power over you in the first place. It's wild how people act when they realize their absence didn't break you. They move different, like awkward different. Like they don't know whether to apologize or pretend nothing happened. Like they want to rewrite the past, but keep tripping over the receipts. You can see it when they look at you. Their eyes do this little flicker, like they're scanning for cracks, checking if there's any of that old version of you left. That version they could manipulate. That version they could shame. That version they could mold to their convenience. But, every time they look, they find someone else. Someone heavier. Someone sharper. Someone who walked through the fire they threw at you and came out with your smile still intact, but your patience burned to ashes. That freaks them out. People don't know how to handle a version of you they can't guilt trip. They don't know what to do when the jokes don't land anymore. They don't know how to move around someone who doesn't crumble under pressure. And you didn't just survive the pressure, you adapted to it. Like you fused with it. You turned pressure into clarity, pain into navigation, doubt into blueprint. You started looking at life like, yeah, that hurt. But it didn't stop anything. You walked through storms that weren't meant for any regular person, and every time they thought you'd tap out, you just found another gear, another level, another version of yourself that made them rethink who they were messing with. And, people notice that kind of growth, even when they pretend they don't. They see the way you move with intention. They see the way you hold your facial expressions steady, the way you don't flinch, the way you speak from your chest, even when you're having a rough day. They see the new posture, the new energy, the new self-trust. You're not operating from pain anymore. You're operating from self-worth. And that's a completely different type of power. It's the type that exposes every cheap trick, every fake storyline, every person who tried to break you for sport. They watch you walk into spaces they swore you'd never make it to, and it hits them that their entire campaign against you was built on nothing but insecurity. They feel stupid as fuck because, it turns out you weren't the weak one. They were. They needed an audience. They needed a target. They needed someone to project their failures onto. And you just happened to be the unlucky one who stood too close to their insecurity for too long. But look at you now. You became this unshakable presence, this walking reminder that their opinions didn't age well. You're the plot twist they never prepared for. You're the headline they tried to bury but couldn't. You're the name people say with a little more caution each day. You ever notice how folks who doubted you try to match your energy now? How they mimic your slang, your confidence, your aura? They hate that you became the reference point. They hate that people compare them to you. They hate that your resilience turned into a blueprint they can't follow without looking fake. And, it's not even that you're trying to outshine them. You're just existing in a space they never believed you'd reach. You're just breathing in rooms they thought you'd never see. You're just being yourself in a version of life they never wanted you to access. Their whole strategy was based on you staying small, and you outgrew that script like it was written in pencil. Every step you take exposes something they don't want people to see. How wrong they were, how loud they were, how confidently they bet against someone who was built for longevity. And you don't even rub it in. That's what bothers them the most. You don't brag, you don't gloat, you don't broadcast revenge. Your calm is the part that haunts them. 'Cause nothing scares a guilty person more than the silence of the one they tried to break, the smile of the one who survived, the growth of the one they underestimated, the success of the one they abandoned when you needed them the most. And you walk with this energy now, this heavy quiet that makes people rethink how they ever addressed you. This aura that says, I'm not who I used to be, and that's your problem, not mine. This confidence that doesn't need validation, this presence that doesn't chase approval, this version of you that came from scars you didn't deserve. This version of you that came from scars you didn't deserve. And it's crazy, because you carry it with this calmness that makes people nervous without you even trying. You ever notice that? How your silence hits louder than their whole personality. How your presence fills a room before you even step in. How people suddenly start measuring their words. Like they're scared to trip on their own tongue. That's what happens when someone grows past the lies thrown at them. Your growth becomes a mirror. A big, uncomfortable mirror they never asked to look into. They see themselves clearer than they want to, and they see you clearer than they ever intended to admit. They see that you weren't the weak link. You weren't the problem. You weren't the joke. You were the storm forming in silence. You were the comeback they never prepared for. You were the lesson wrapped in a person they underestimated. And it's wild how people try to attach themselves back to you once the glow-up gets real. They show up with soft voices, polite wording, weird compliments, fake nostalgia like remember back then. Yeah, you remember back then. You remember exactly who was laughing, who was whispering, who was doubting, who was cheering for your downfall behind closed doors. They feel stupid as fuck because they can't justify the way they acted. There's no excuse that matches the weight of their behavior. They thought you'd crumble. They thought the lies would break you. They thought the whispers would stain you. But the truth is, you took every rumor, every insult, every backhand comment, every fake moment, every eye roll, every dismissive laugh, and you used it as raw material to build the version of you standing here right now. People don't know what to do with someone who survived the hit that was meant to finish them. It messes with their head. It really does. They see you breathing different, moving different, thinking different, and they realize all the damage they tried to cause only ended up shaping you stronger. And they're embarrassed by that. Embarrassed that your strength exposed their weakness. Embarrassed that your resilience highlighted their insecurity. Embarrassed that their lies dissolved the second you walked into your own truth. And the city sees it too. Everybody sees it. People who never spoke to you before treat you like you're carved out of a different material. You feel it in how they talk to you, how they adjust themselves when you walk past, how they show you space without you needing to demand it. Respect hits different when it wasn't given willingly, when it wasn't offered gently, when it wasn't shared easily, but when it was forced into existence through your growth, your grit, your refusal to stay small. You became someone they reference in conversations, someone they use as an example, someone whose name carries weight in rooms you've never entered. People drop your name with this little pause afterward, like they're acknowledging something bigger than they can explain. And that's what happens when you outgrow the narrative people tried to trap you in. You don't just heal, you create a new identity they can't handle. Your energy shifts from, please understand me, to you'll never understand me, but you'll respect me. Your vibe shifts from, I hope I fit in, to I'm the standard you measure yourself against. The same mouths that lied on you are the same mouths trying not to choke on compliments now. The same people who dismissed you are the same ones hoping you don't remember what they did. The same ones who laughed are the same ones afraid you might start laughing back. And you're not even petty about it. That's the part that burns them the most. You don't chase apologies. You don't chase explanations. You don't chase closure. You don't chase validation. You don't chase them. You just move with this unbothered sharpness, this calm authority, this I've been through too much to fold again energy, and it forces everyone else to adjust to you instead of you adjusting to them. Your existence turned into the truth they tried to bury, and your strength turned into proof they can't hide from anymore. And it hits them every time they see you walking like you didn't just survive. You upgraded. You ever notice how people stare at you like they're trying to recognize something that wasn't there before? Like they're scanning for the old version of you, 'cause that's the only version they knew how to handle. It's almost funny, the way their eyes flicker. Like they're unsure if they're looking at someone they used to know or someone who outgrew everything they ever projected onto you. It's this weird mix of respect, fear, jealousy, regret, admiration, all in one look. Real messy, real human, real uncomfortable for them. All right, sit down for a few minutes. No, seriously, sit. I need you to hear this the way the world refuses to say it to your face. You walk in with that strange, unsettling calm that nobody knows how to categorize anymore. And don't act confused. You feel it too. That shift in your presence, that silent weight you carry now, that thing in your eyes that makes people freeze for half a second before pretending they didn't just tense up. Because deep down, you know exactly what's happening. Jesus. They still can't process how you flipped reality like a toy. You're running the whole damn board, and half these people are still trying to understand how you went from barely noticed to the reason everyone's upgrading their life choices. And it's funny, actually hilarious, because they still think they understand you. They think they know your blueprint, your formula, your steps, but you You're not operating on logic they're familiar with. You evolved past their map. You stepped into territory they never had the courage to explore. You didn't wait for life to hand you permission. You didn't wait for the crowd to approve. You didn't wait for motivation to magically appear in your inbox. You got fed up. You got angry. You got tired of the same recycled expectations. You grabbed your own reality like it was clay and squeezed until it bent. And they've been terrified ever since. Because when you change too fast, people convince themselves you changed too much. When you level up too loudly, without bragging, without posting, just leveling, they start trying to diagnose you instead of clapping for you. When you stop being predictable, they label you different. When you start winning, they label you dangerous. You flipped reality with the same hands they tried to tie behind your back. And now, they're stuck studying you like you're some unsolved glitch in the universe. You're the one they gossip about at 2 a.m. You're the one they think about while pretending they're not jealous. You're the one they try to imitate in private but pretend not to notice in public. You're the one they underestimated, and now you're the one they can't decode. Let's be real. You didn't get here by luck. People love saying luck when they can't admit someone outworked them. You got here because you refused to stay small. You refused to shrink so other people could stay comfortable. You refused to keep quiet just because your growth made everyone else question their laziness. You became unpredictable, and unpredictable people are terrifying because you turned your pain into clarity, your silence into strength, your doubt into discipline, your heartbreak into hunger, your loneliness into focus. Nobody knows the nights you broke down and still woke up early. Nobody knows the pressure in your chest that you pushed through anyway. Nobody knows the betrayal that almost made you quit. Nobody knows the moments you had absolutely nothing left except one tiny thought. I can't go back to who I used to be. And you didn't. You didn't cave. You didn't fold. You didn't return to the old you. The one who kept apologizing for existing. The one who stayed quiet to be liked. The one who dimmed their own damn light so others wouldn't feel insecure. You became someone else entirely. A version of you that nobody predicted. A version of you that forced life to renegotiate its terms. A version that made people rethink their own trajectory. And now look, you're running the whole board. Every move you make hits differently. Every decision you take forces everything around you to shift. Every step you take creates shockwaves people can't ignore anymore. That's why they whisper. That's why they stare. That's why they ask questions about you instead of asking questions to you. You became the blueprint they wish they had, the patience, discipline, and courage to build. You became the proof that their excuses were always just excuses. You became the mirror none of them wanted to look into. And now they're obsessed, they're uncomfortable, they're confused, they're inspired against their will. Because Jesus, they still can't process how you flipped reality like a toy. They still can't understand how someone like you, quiet, overlooked, counted out, became the storm that rearranged every expectation placed on your head. You didn't just rise, you detonated into existence, and the world hasn't recovered since. And the crazy part is, you didn't even do it loudly. That's the piece that keeps haunting them. You didn't walk around bragging. You didn't stand on tables announcing your rebirth. You just shifted, quietly, consistently, and suddenly the whole landscape had to adjust around you instead of you adjusting for everyone else. People keep acting like you cast some mysterious spell over your life. They swear there's a hidden trick somewhere, a shortcut, a secret mentor, an inside connection. They invent stories because the truth burns their ego too much to accept. And the truth is embarrassingly simple. You did what most people refuse to do. You faced yourself. You stopped being afraid of your own potential. You held your own damn hand through the ugly parts nobody talks about. You dragged yourself through parts of life people avoid like the plague because they'd rather feel stuck than feel uncomfortable. But you walked straight into the discomfort and made it your training ground. You turned emotional scars into fuel. You used isolation like a forge. You used disappointment like a sharpening stone. And every time someone said you weren't capable, something in you snapped in a way that didn't destroy you. It reconstructed you. It made you sharper, hungrier, more locked in. You became the version of yourself you used to fantasize about when you were younger, the one you never thought you'd get to meet. And you met them, and you became them. And everyone around you is scrambling to keep up with the pace you set. People look at you now and swear you have this effortless confidence, but they never saw the nights you sat on the floor with your hands shaking. They never saw you staring at your ceiling, feeling like your chest weighed 50 kilos. They never saw the days you felt like you were falling behind in a race you didn't even want to run. They didn't see any of that. They just see you now, steady, grounded, unrecognizable. It's wild watching people try to decode you. They whisper behind your back like school kids comparing notes before a test. They zoom in on your habits, your routines, your tone, your shoes, your silence. They're looking for cracks, glitches, anything that proves you're not actually this upgraded version they're witnessing. Because if you are the real deal, it forces them to confront how much time they wasted ignoring their own potential. And, that's exactly why they're overwhelmed by you. You're the living contradiction of everything they believed about you. You weren't supposed to rise. You weren't supposed to break generational cycles. You weren't supposed to outgrow the environment that tried to cage you. You weren't supposed to become the one people look at before making decisions. Yet here you are, changing the atmosphere just by existing in it. Here you are, walking with the kind of presence that makes people straighten their posture without knowing why. Here you are, carrying the weight of your past like it's a trophy instead of a curse, and it makes them uncomfortable in their own skin. Because you became the reminder that healing is possible, that transformation is possible, that strength is built in silence, not applause, that discipline feels lonely but pays in ways comfort never will. People aren't intimidated by your success. They're intimidated by your survival. You lived through things that should have broken you mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You crawled out of situations that left others stuck for years. You kept pushing, even when the world felt like it was sitting on your chest. You rebuilt yourself while carrying pain that nobody ever apologized for, and the version you've become because of that. It's not a coincidence, it's not a phase, it's not an aesthetic, it's not a persona. It's the real you finally showing up without fear. And that's what they can't process. That's what keeps them replaying your every move in their heads. That's what keeps them whispering your name while pretending they aren't impressed. Because Jesus, you flipped reality like a toy, and they're still in denial that someone who came from where you came from, someone who felt what you felt, someone who lost what you lost, someone who cracked the way you cracked, could rise into the kind of person who doesn't just survive life, but bends it, reshapes it, reclaims it. You carry that energy now, that quiet, don't test me aura mixed with, I don't need your validation to breathe. You walk like someone who buried their old self and didn't leave a map for anyone to find the grave. You talk like someone who tasted fear and decided it wasn't enough to stop them. You move like someone who isn't trying to impress anybody, but somehow ends up being the most unforgettable person in every room you enter. And that's exactly why they're studying you behind the scenes, terrified to admit they're inspired, terrified to admit they're confused, terrified to admit they're watching you like a damn case study with no answers written on the back of the textbook. Because every time they think they've finally figured you out, you switch lanes without even signaling, and it throws their whole mental GPS into a meltdown. They're sitting there like, wait, weren't they supposed to be struggling right now? And you're out here moving smoother than you ever have in your life. It's almost comedic watching them try to keep up with a version of you that doesn't even exist in the files they have on you. They're referencing an outdated version, like they're using last year's map to navigate a city that got rebuilt overnight. You evolved too fast for their memories to keep up. Their perception of you is lagging behind your reality. And that lag is killing them quietly. You walk with this weird kind of calm that's almost dangerous. Not loud, not cocky, just grounded, like someone who has already survived the worst and doesn't need to posture anymore. And people feel that. The moment you walk in, something shifts. It's not magic, it's not ego, it's not a performance. It's the weight of someone who earned their confidence. Piece by piece, scar by scar, night by night. And it irritates them because they can't replicate it. They can copy your clothes, your slang, your work ethic, your style. But they can't copy your becoming. They can't fake the miles you walked alone. They can't imitate the way your mind rewired itself in the dark when you had nobody to call. They can't mimic the resilience you built on nights you swore you were done, but got back up anyway. There's this uncomfortable truth they don't want to admit. Your glow didn't come from joy. It came from survival. It came from heartbreak that changed your DNA. It came from disappointments that sharpened your instincts. It came from pressure that would have made someone else fold in half. You carry a story in your posture that you never had to explain, because the energy speaks louder than a biography ever could. And, that's exactly what throws people. You didn't need applause to wake up early. You didn't need validation to keep building. You didn't need people to cheer for you before you chose discipline. You didn't wait for the world to say yes before you stepped into who you were meant to be. You just acted. You just moved. You just kept going, even when your whole chest felt like it was collapsing. You became someone who scares people without even trying. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're proof. Proof that someone can start at zero and still rewrite the storyline. Proof that someone can get betrayed and still stay compassionate. Proof that someone can get overlooked for years and still rise with a presence that demands attention without raising its voice. People keep thinking confidence is loud. Yours isn't. Yours is silent, heavy, unbothered, real. The kind of confidence that comes from knowing you rebuilt yourself from scratch and didn't ask for permission, and it hits them every time they see you. This little internal jolt, like an alarm going off. Damn, if they can do that, what's my excuse? They won't say it out loud, of course. They'll call you lucky. They'll call you different. They'll call you complicated, intense, intimidating. Anything that stops them from admitting you're simply the result of refusing to give up on yourself. And the hilarious thing is, you're still not even at your peak. You're still figuring things out. You're still adjusting. You're still learning your own strength. You're still unfolding into a version of you that even you can't predict yet. You flipped reality like a toy, and you're still warming up. And that's the part that makes people go quiet the moment your name comes up. They sense there's more coming. They sense you haven't even released the full version of yourself yet. They sense that whatever they're seeing right now is just the trailer, not the movie. And that anticipation, it's eating them alive. They're excited, threatened, confused, inspired, all at the same time, because watching someone rise this hard, this fast, this unexpectedly, forces everyone around you to question the limits they built in their own head. And that's the part that messes with them the most, because every time they think they've finally caught up to your pace, you quietly shift again. You reinvent without asking anyone's permission. You pivot without announcing it on a billboard. You adjust like it's second nature, and it leaves everyone else questioning why change feels like pulling teeth for them while you treat it like breathing. It's wild watching the way people study you now. They're analyzing you like they're trying to catch a glitch in your matrix, waiting for you to make a mistake that confirms their old version of you was accurate. And it's eating them from the inside that the mistake never comes. You're consistent in a way that scares people who only pretend they're disciplined. You move with this calm intensity, like someone who's been through enough chaos to understand what real peace actually feels like. Not the fake peace people chase by avoiding conflict. The real peace you earn by surviving conflict. And that energy hits different. It lands heavy. It makes insecure people fidget. It makes jealous people go quiet. It makes the ones who doubted you rethink everything they ever said behind closed doors. They never expected the quiet one to become the game changer. They never expected the underestimated one to become the pace setter. They never expected the person they used to overlook to walk in with an aura that says, "I'm not who you remember." And you're not. You're not built the way you used to be built. You're not moved by the things that used to break you. You're not shaken by whispers or sabotage or rumors or opinions. You've outgrown reactions that once defined you. You've outgrown people who once drained you. You've outgrown environments that once trapped you. And, people feel that loss of access, even if they pretend they don't. There's a tension they carry when your name comes up. You're not the person they used to handle, manage, or manipulate. You're a version they can't predict. A version they can't influence. A version they can't guilt into shrinking. And that unpredictability makes you dangerous in the eyes of the stagnant. Because nothing terrifies stagnant people more than someone who refuses to stay where they were left. You turned lessons into weapons. You turned heartbreak into boundaries. You turned disappointment into acceleration. You turned loneliness into clarity. And all of that together created this presence you have now. This aura that feels like controlled fire. Like someone who's been burned enough times to know exactly how to hold flames without getting scarred again. People try to test you with little comments, little rumors, little provocations, expecting the old you to show up. And the old you never does. You don't react emotionally anymore. You respond strategically. You don't explain yourself anymore. You move differently. You don't chase peace anymore. You embody it, and people either rise to your frequency or fall away by default. And it drives them up the wall because they can't figure out where your strength is coming from. They think you're hiding some new mentor, some secret formula, some overnight miracle. They never consider that the strength came from suffering that didn't break you, that the clarity came from nights where you were forced to admit things you didn't want to accept, that the confidence came from showing up again and again, even when your mind was screaming, "Give up." You became someone they can't box in, someone they can't label, someone they can't downgrade in conversation without sounding delusional. You became the exception to their assumptions. You became the one name that changes the whole tone of a room when mentioned. And the funniest part is how confused they look, realizing you're not even trying to impress anyone. You're not chasing applause. You're not proving a point. You're not forcing your glow. You're just existing in the version of yourself you fought like hell to become. And that version of you, this sharper, stronger, calmer, more self-aware version, is the exact reason they're still out here trying to process how you flipped reality like a toy, while they're stuck rereading the same chapter of their own life, trying to figure out where you found the courage to rewrite yours without asking anyone's permission to begin with. And it's almost surreal watching the way they react to you now, because every time you walk into a space, there's this tiny pause, like everybody's brain needs an extra half-second to recalibrate who you are versus who they keep remembering. That mismatch hits them like a glitch. They're dealing with a past version while you're standing there as the updated model, and that gap exposes everything they've been wrong about. You can literally see the confusion in their eyes sometimes, like they're trying to match your face to an old memory that doesn't fit anymore. It's like watching someone try to plug a USB in upside down over and over, getting frustrated because nothing connects the way it used to. You outgrew the socket they tried to keep you plugged into. Hey, look at you. Yeah, everybody in here, breathe for a second. Because this one ain't light, and it ain't polite, and it definitely isn't meant to tuck you in. This is for the people who feel off in the world, like the room keeps going quiet when they walk in, like the air changes just a little. Like you've been playing a role you never auditioned for. You have zero clue who you are in the spirit realm. None. And that's not an insult. That's the setup. You wake up every day thinking this version of you is the whole story. Job, phone, problems, bills, expectations, labels they slapped on you early and never bothered to remove. You scroll, you laugh, you survive, you adapt. You tell yourself this is normal. Everybody's tired, everybody's stressed, everybody's confused, but deep down, deep way down, you've always known something doesn't add up. Because you don't just feel lost, you feel out of place. Like you're a high-powered machine dropped into beginner mode. Like your memory got wiped on purpose. Like your soul walked into this life with a blindfold on, and instructions were conveniently missing. And you keep asking yourself why certain things hit you harder than they should. Why injustice makes your chest burn. Why you can smell fake from a mile away. Why solitude feels safer than crowds. Why you've always felt watched, measured, studied, even when nobody's around. You think that's anxiety. They think that's awareness. See, you don't know who you are in the spirit realm, but they do. And by they, I don't mean some cartoon villains in robes. I mean systems, hierarchies, structures, energies, people who read patterns instead of resumes, people who study lineage, frequency, reaction, pressure, tolerance, people who notice who doesn't break the way they're supposed to. You ever notice how much resistance showed up in your life early? Like the hits came fast, Too fast. Family chaos, sudden losses, betrayals that felt scripted, doors closing for no logical reason. You told yourself you were unlucky. Nah. Pressure reveals quality. Nobody wastes this much opposition on someone average. Average people glide. You got dragged, and still, you're here. Still thinking, still questioning, still standing in rooms you weren't expected to survive entering. Still not fully controlled, even after everything they threw at you to dull the edge. That's the part you don't know. That's the part you forgot. But somebody noticed, because when you returned, when you came back into this world as this version of you, you didn't come empty. You came with residue, instincts, reflexes, a presence you can't explain and other people can't ignore. You ever sit somewhere quietly and feel somebody across the room clock you for no reason? That's not paranoia. That's recognition without context. Your spirit knows how to stand, even when your mind is unsure. You've always felt older than your age, right? Like you're watching people repeat things you've already outgrown. Like trends don't quite hypnotize you. Like you can't fully commit to the nonsense. No matter how hard you try to blend in, you try being normal, but your soul keeps side-eyeing the whole operation because you didn't return to forget forever. You returned under constraint, and that's the part that messes with people. You don't wake up knowing the truth. You wake up sensing it, in flashes, in discomfort, in that low hum behind your thoughts that says, this isn't all there is. In moments where your patience runs out for the things everyone else tolerates easily. In that urge to burn your old self down and rebuild without asking permission. They know who you are because they've seen this pattern before. The late bloomers with dangerous depth. The ones who look calm until they're not. The ones whose awakenings don't come as peace. They come as disruption. They know people like you don't move fast. But when you move, structures wobble. That's why confusion surrounds you. Fog is strategic. You think it's accidental you've had to piece yourself together with no manual. That nobody ever really explained you to yourself. That guidance only came half clear. Because clarity triggers remembrance, and remembrance changes posture, and posture changes power dynamics. And some balances are very comfortable the way they are. So you're given distractions instead. Trauma loops, self-doubt, overthinking, labels that lower expectations, voices that tell you to calm down, be realistic, stay in your lane. Meanwhile, your spirit keeps pacing like a caged animal, checking the bars, waiting for the click it recognizes. And yeah, you don't know who you are in the spirit realm, but you feel the weight of it. You feel it when you refuse to bow internally, even when you comply externally. When you play the game just enough to survive, but never enough to surrender. When you laugh with people who don't know you, knowing if you ever showed them the real depth, it would scare them. When you sense timelines branching, and you realize small decisions feel heavier for you than for others. That's because your return wasn't casual. Some people reincarnate to experience, others return to intervene. And right now, you're walking around with the amnesia part of the package, thinking the confusion is the problem, not realizing it's the cover. The delay isn't punishment. It's training under pressure. It's seasoning. It's learning restraint before remembering capacity. You don't need to rush revelation. You're already being read correctly by the ones who matter in this story. They've been watching how you handle disappointment, how you treat power when you don't have it yet, how you talk to yourself when nobody's clapping, How you respond when the world keeps testing a strength you didn't consciously sign up to demonstrate. And the funny part, the real joke. They're more certain about you than you are about yourself. Because while you're asking, who am I really? They're asking, when does this one remember? Every moment you resist becoming smaller. Every time you choose awareness over numbness. Every time you walk away instead of selling your soul for comfort. Every time you sit with the discomfort instead of running from it. You're pulling threads from something much older than this lifetime. And no, this speech isn't here to tell you who you are. That would cheapen the process. This is just the mirror held long enough for you to notice you've never actually been lost. Just temporarily unfamiliar with your own reflection. You don't need permission to feel different anymore. You don't need validation to trust the signal. You don't need to explain your depth to shallow systems. You just need to keep listening to that quiet, relentless knowing that refuses to shut up inside you. Because the part of you that returned remembers more than you think. And the part of you that's watching this right now is already closer than yesterday. And somewhere, something that's been tracking your frequency just adjusted its expectations again. Because you're already noticing things shifting. Yeah, like subtle stuff at first. Little cracks in the routine. The old distractions don't hit the same. The conversations sound hollow quicker than they used to. You're listening to people talk, and it's like you can hear the script behind the words. Like you already know where it's going before they finish the sentence. And that's when it starts getting uncomfortable, because you realize you're not bored. You're ahead. You've been gaslit your whole life into thinking that feeling meant arrogance, or isolation, or immaturity. Nah. That's discernment kicking in without the labels attached yet. That's your spirit stretching inside a body that was trained to shrink. You ever feel that tension in your chest when you try to explain yourself and then stop mid-sentence because you know they won't get it anyway? That's not social anxiety. That's strategic silence developing on its own. You walk through this world like you're undercover in your own skin. And the wild part is, you think you're the one being tested. But half the time, you're the test. People show you who they are around you without meaning to. They overreact. They project. They compete with you silently. They either dump their trauma on you or treat you like a threat they can't fully name. You're calm. You're observant. You're not even trying to do anything. And yet the room rearranges itself around your presence. That doesn't happen by accident. You've noticed how authority figures clock you sideways sometimes. Bosses, elders, people with positions. They can't put their finger on it, but something in them knows you're not meant to stay beneath anything permanently. You don't rebel loud. You don't crash systems dramatically. You outlast them. And that's way more dangerous. You didn't return loud. You returned patient. That's why life keeps forcing you to sit with yourself. Long pauses, delays, dead time that feels like punishment until you realize it sharpened your perception. You had to learn how to hear your own thoughts without noise first. You had to survive loneliness without turning bitter. You had to get familiar with emptiness so you wouldn't panic when space opened up later. Most people collapse when nothing's happening. You learned how to breathe there. And yeah, nobody told you this part, but they didn't forget you either. You're not off record. Your reactions are logged. Your resilience is noted. Every cycle you didn't break in, every compromise you refused even when your back was against the wall, every time you chose the harder internal route instead of the easier external one, it stacked quietly. You think your life looks random. From above, it reads intentional. That feeling you get right before something big changes. When sleep gets weird, appetite shifts, memories resurface out of nowhere. That's not coincidence. That's internal clearance happening. Old permissions expiring. Old versions timing out. You don't need to understand it intellectually, yet. Your body already clocked the memo. And the craziest thing? You're still trying to downplay yourself. You still tell yourself you're probably overthinking. You still assume other people have it figured out more than you do. You still act like your depth is a flaw you need to soften so you don't make anyone uncomfortable. But pay attention. Who's actually uncomfortable? It's never the grounded ones. It's the performative ones. The people holding their identity together with noise and validation and routines. They're scared to question. Your silence rattles them. Your patience confuses them. Your refusal to rush makes them nervous because they know people like you don't move unless there's a reason. And when there is a reason, there's no drama about it. You're not here to react. You're here to reposition. That's why pressure keeps finding you even when you mind your business. That's why challenges sneak up instead of announcing themselves. That's why comfort always seems temporary, like something nudging you to stay sharp, stay awake, stay aware. You weren't sent back to sleepwalk through routines that crumble the moment something real happens. And you feel it most late at night, don't you? When the noise drops and you're alone with your thoughts. That quiet confidence mixed with restlessness. That itch to become something undefined, yet unmistakable. That sense that you're standing at the edge of remembering without fully crossing over yet. You're closer than you've ever been. Not because you learned something new. Because you stopped betraying what you already knew. You stopped forcing yourself into boxes that never fit. You stopped apologizing internally for wanting more depth, more truth, more alignment. You started honoring the weight you carry without turning it into ego. And somewhere in the layers beyond this version of reality, something that's been watching your restraint, your timing, your refusal to fold, just marked another quiet check beside your name. Because pressure doesn't get wasted on people who aren't built to carry anything meaningful. And you've been carrying weight you never verbally agreed to hold since early on. Way before you had the language to name it. You learned responsibility sideways. Learned awareness through discomfort. Learned how to read energy before you learned how to ask for help. That's why you catch vibes quicker than explanations. Why you sense when things are off before facts line up. Why your intuition hits first and logic shows up late trying to catch breath. You've been trained in silence, and it shows in the way you pause before reacting, like you're checking an internal database nobody else can access. You're not indecisive. You're consulting memory that doesn't come with timestamps. You've always trusted your gut more than promises, more than titles, more than hype. You've watched people peak early and fade loud, while you kept moving quiet and steady, stacking something nobody else saw coming. You don't realize how obvious you are to certain eyes. That's why random mentorship shows up and disappears. Why authority sometimes leans closer when you speak, even when your words are simple. Why some people feel suddenly seen around you, and others feel exposed. You're not trying to reveal anything. You're just standing there unmasked, and that alone makes masks nervous. Think about how often you've been underestimated, then strangely monitored afterward. You've had moments where things should have fallen apart, but didn't. Where timing bent just enough to keep you upright. where doors closed hard, but another angle appeared without fanfare. You called it luck? You called it coincidence? You called it having good instincts. What you didn't call it was protection, because claiming that felt arrogant, felt unrealistic, felt like tempting something fragile. But notice the pattern. Something always steps in after you refuse to abandon yourself. That's not rescue. That's alignment responding. That's clearance clearing. That's you passing invisible thresholds by staying internally consistent while everything external tried to rewrite you. You don't get rewarded for being perfect. You get noticed for being uncorrupted under pressure, for not morphing into what the environment demanded just to survive another day easier. And yeah, you've been tired. Bone tired. The kind of tired sleep doesn't fix. The kind that comes from carrying unspoken responsibility, from knowing more than you can articulate, from postponing your own expansion because others around you aren't ready to adjust. You shrink your truth mid-sentence more often than you admit, trying not to disturb the balance, trying not to trigger insecurity, trying not to ignite reactions you don't feel like managing. But every time you do that, something inside you pushes back harder. That push isn't rebellion. It's remembrance trying to surface. It's your deeper self checking whether you're still paying attention. You didn't come back to get comfortable being small. You came back to learn how to hold magnitude without becoming loud, without becoming reckless, without becoming what this world expects power to look like. You're different in a way that doesn't announce itself. That's why life keeps circling you back to the same lessons with new faces, new settings, new stakes. It's not stuckness, it's refinement. Each cycle filters out another layer of false identification, another borrowed belief, another version of yourself that was built for survival instead of truth. And you can feel the shift happening internally. Your patience thinning for things that don't respect your depth, your thresholds recalibrating, your tolerance for nonsense evaporating quietly. You're not angry, you're done rehearsing. You don't need a dramatic awakening moment. You're already awake enough to stop negotiating with what drains you. Already sharp enough to notice when something is misaligned without needing proof. Already grounded enough to let go without closing your heart to the world. That's why your next phase won't look loud from the outside. It'll look precise, intentional, unavoidable in hindsight. People will say they always knew you had something in you, forgetting how often they advised you to play it safe, tone it down, be realistic, wait your turn. Turns out you were waiting on memory, not permission, and every day you stay honest with yourself. Every moment you trust that quiet internal signal over external noise. Every time you refuse to trade depth for approval. Something ancient within you strengthens posture just a bit more, recalibrates stance just a bit further, sharpens focus, like it recognizes the environment shifting closer to something it remembers all too well. Because once posture changes internally, the world starts responding sideways, not directly, not politely, but in these subtle reroutes that only you notice. People start revealing intentions quicker. Opportunities hover without landing right away. Delays begin feeling different, not heavy, not hopeless, just calibrated, like something is sizing you up instead of stalling you out. You felt that, yeah, that moment where things slow down right before they accelerate, where your instincts start whispering louder than outside advice, where formerly safe choices suddenly feel cramped, like clothes you've outgrown but kept wearing out of habit. You try to rationalize it, tell yourself you're being dramatic, telling yourself everybody feels this way at some point. But deep down, you know this isn't a phase. This is a shift in operating system. You're not searching anymore the same way. You're observing, watching patterns repeat across different people, catching the same behaviors in different bodies, noticing how quickly power exposes character, how fear decorates itself as logic, how some people cling to certainty because curiosity would dismantle them. You don't judge it, you just clock it. And that ability to clock without reacting, that's another thing that didn't come from this lifetime. You notice how your silence lands heavier lately, how when you don't explain yourself, things still rearrange, how walking away calmly seems to disturb some people more than confrontation ever would. You're not emotionally unavailable, you're selectively present. And that selection process is tightening whether you consciously try or not. That's because you're remembering boundaries you didn't learn here. You've always had a weird relationship with authority, right? Not defiant, not obedient, just unimpressed when it isn't earned. Titles never fully hypnotized you. Status doesn't override integrity in your head. You listen, you observe, you comply when it aligns. But something in you refuses to bow internally just because someone expects it. That's not ego. That's something deeper resisting overright. That's why manipulation never sticks to you long. You see through it eventually. Even when you fall for it briefly, something snaps you back to center. You replay conversations later and catch what was really being said. You scroll less. You withdraw more. You start protecting your attention like it's expensive. Because you know it is. You know where attention goes, energy follows, and your energy doesn't regenerate like casual currency. You've been conserving without being taught how. And yeah, it's been lonely. Way lonelier than you admit. Being aware while pretending not to be is exhausting. Carrying insight without context feels isolating. Hey, you. Yeah, you sitting there pretending you're just listening, pretending nothing changed yet. I see you. I feel you. And, let me talk to that part of you that already knows what happened but hasn't said it out loud yet. Because here's the thing. You didn't make noise. You didn't post about it. You didn't announce it. No dramatic speech. No heads up. No countdown. One move. That's it. One quiet, deliberate, almost lazy-looking move. And suddenly, you're the MF everybody answers to. And that's the part that messes with them. See, power isn't loud when it's real. Real power doesn't walk into a room introducing itself. Real power doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't even need confidence on the outside. It just moves. And when it moves, the world rearranges itself around it, whether people like it or not. You ever notice how the room gets weird after someone realizes you're not who they thought you were? Conversations shift, timing changes, replies come faster, excuses get cleaner. People who used to talk over you suddenly start saying your name differently. That's not coincidence. That's recognition. That's the moment they realize you crossed a line they didn't even know existed. And the crazy part? You crossed it while everyone was busy underestimating you. They thought you were patient because you were scared, thought you were quiet because you were weak, thought you were waiting for permission. Nah, you were calculating. You were watching patterns. You were studying who folds under pressure and who panics when control slips. You were letting them get comfortable calling shots that were never really theirs. And then, you moved. Not emotionally, not desperately, not like someone trying to prove something. You moved like someone who already accepted the consequences before the action. That's Joker energy right there. That's that unhinged calm, that I already burned the exit and I'm still smiling type mindset. Because once you make that move, there's no going back to being approachable. No going back to being convenient. No going back to them thinking they can test you without paying for it. The scary thing for them is, you didn't threaten anyone. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't even look for validation. You just acted. And action rewrites hierarchies faster than words ever could. Now let's be real. Some of them felt it immediately. That pit in their stomach? Yeah. That was the realization that leverage changed hands. That the chessboard flipped. That whatever game they thought they were running, they're a piece now, and you didn't even rush it. You let the silence do the damage, because silence after a power move is loud as hell. You didn't ask for respect. You positioned yourself so disrespect became expensive. And when that happens, people don't argue. They adjust, they comply, they start checking with you first. They start mirroring your tone. They start waiting on your reaction before making decisions they used to make freely. That's when you know, something snapped into place. And look, let's not romanticize it. This wasn't pretty. This cost you sleep. This cost you parts of your innocence. This cost you relationships that were only alive because you were playing small. Some people disappeared, some got cold, some switched up overnight. That's the tax. Power always sends the bill later. But you paid it. You paid it when you kept your mouth shut instead of defending yourself. You paid it when you swallowed disrespect just to map the terrain. You paid it when you stopped reacting and started recording patterns in your head like a damn surveillance feed. You paid it when you chose long-term leverage over short-term ego relief. And now people swear you changed. No, you revealed yourself. The version of you that doesn't chase. The version that doesn't over-explain. The version that understands that attention is a currency and scarcity multiplies value. You learned that unpredictability beats aggression. That restraint terrifies loud people more than violence ever could. And, here's the animus morphosis truth they don't want to face. You're not trying to be liked anymore. You're trying to be unavoidable. That's why they answer your calls differently. That's why your name shows up in conversations you're not even part of. That's why somebody somewhere is doing mental math about how not to end up on the wrong side of you. You didn't dominate through force. You dominated through precision. One move, clean, efficient, no witnesses necessary. And once that line is crossed, once you step into that frequency, life responds differently. Opportunities start coming sideways instead of head-on. People start offering instead of asking. Situations that used to stress you suddenly feel light, almost funny, like you can see the strings now. Because you can. You see who needs you more than you need them. You see who panics when you delay a reply. You see who only felt powerful when you were silent and agreeable. And the wildest part? You don't even feel the need to expose it. You let them sit in their assumptions. That's Joker control, psychological, surgical, smiling while the room recalibrates around you. And deep down, they know. You could make another move if you wanted to. That's what keeps them respectful, not fear. Possibility. The awareness that you're capable, detached, and done playing for approval. You're not loud about it. You don't flex it. You just exist differently now. Slower responses, shorter sentences, sharper timing. And somehow, in that restraint, you become heavier, more solid, more final. And, if you're feeling that strange calm mixed with chaos right now, that means you're fully in it. That means the old version of you doesn't apply anymore. That means when you walk into rooms, physical or digital, something tightens, attention shifts, energy listens, because you already made the move. And from here, everything you don't do speaks even louder than the things you do. The pauses stretch longer, the silence thickens, people wait, calculate, anticipate, and you just sit there knowing exactly how far this can go, knowing restraint is part of the dominance, knowing that when control is real, you don't rush the next step. You let the tension work for you. You let the uncertainty grow. You let them wonder what you're capable of next, while you're already 3 steps ahead, already seeing outcomes collide, already aware that the game didn't start when they noticed. It started when you decided you were done playing their version of it and started moving like someone who understands that power is felt before it's ever explained, before it's acknowledged, before anyone dares to question why the room feels different every time you decide to shift your weight and breathe a little slower, a little deeper, like someone who knows exactly who answers to who now and doesn't need to say it out loud. Because once you're in that headspace, you realize power doesn't rush, it waits, and waiting becomes your weapon. You're not stressed about outcomes anymore. You're not scrambling for reactions. You're watching how people move when they think you're undecided, how they expose themselves, trying to guess your next step. That's the funny part. People get sloppy around silence. They talk too much. They reveal motives. They show fear wearing confidence like a cheap jacket, and you clock all of it. You clock how the same people who ignored you before suddenly need your opinion. How they phrase things softly now, like they're testing the temperature of the room. How they slip respect into their tone without consciously realizing it. That doesn't happen because you got louder. That happens because you got clear. Clear about who you are, clear about what you tolerate, clear about when you move and why. And there's this moment, you feel it internally, where you stop explaining yourself, even in your own head. The constant self-justifying loop shuts off. You don't need to rehearse conversations anymore. You don't need to imagine arguments. You're not preparing defenses. You already accepted the outcome of your decision, whatever direction it swings. And that acceptance frees you in a way most people never experience. You're no longer negotiating with reality. That's what makes it terrifying for everyone else. They're used to people who bark and hesitate, people who posture and backpedal, people who say one thing and do another. You say less and mean more. You don't threaten distance, you create it. You don't warn people. They feel the shift when access changes. Access is leverage. You learned that the hard way. You learned that being constantly available makes people careless with how they treat you. You learned that urgency drains authority. You learned that when you stop overgiving, the room starts leaning toward you instead of leaning on you. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. And, let's talk about the internal shift, because nobody mentions this part. Once you cross that line, you don't feel hyped. You don't feel manic. You feel calm in a way that's almost eerie, like your nervous system finally caught up to your instincts. You walk slower. You react later. You choose words like tools instead of emotional outlets. You're not numb. You're focused. You stopped caring about being misunderstood. That used to haunt you. The need to clarify, to be seen accurately, to correct narratives. Somewhere along the way, that fell off. You realized being misunderstood keeps you unpredictable, keeps people guessing, keeps your real leverage protected. The Joker doesn't explain the joke. People around you sense that something is off, that you're not feeding the same energy anymore. You're not validating nonsense. You're not engaging in circular talks. You're not chasing closure. And it makes them uncomfortable because comfort was how they controlled the dynamic before. Control flips quietly. You notice it when plans start revolving around your availability, when people hesitate before crossing boundaries they used to stomp on, when someone pauses mid-sentence like, wait, how is this going to land with you? That pause right there, that's respect installing itself. And there's a subtle confidence in knowing you can disrupt things if you choose, but not needing to. That's the Joker grin nobody sees, that internal laugh when you realize how fragile most authority actually is. Titles, noise, hierarchy, all of it collapses when someone moves with intent and detachment. You didn't beg for a seat at the table. You rearranged the table by where you stood. And there's grief mixed in too, don't get it twisted. You shed pieces of yourself. You lost the version that believed effort alone would earn fairness. You lost the illusion that loyalty is always reciprocated. You lost people you once thought would clap the loudest when you stepped into your own weight. That loss sharpened you. It didn't harden you. It clarified you. That clarity is what makes every move feel heavier now. You don't waste motion anymore. You don't overcommit. You don't say yes just to keep the vibe smooth. You let tension exist. You let awkwardness sit in the room. You let people adjust to you instead of the other way around. And, deep down, they feel it. They feel that you're no longer reactive, that you don't need immediate wins, that you're playing a longer game they can't see the rules to. That's what forces obedience before acknowledgement. People always answer to what they don't fully understand, but know they can't ignore. Your presence carries consequence. And the wild part is, you're not doing anything extraordinary. You're just being intentional in a world that's impulsive. You're just being still in a world that's frantic. That contrast alone creates authority. Still water freaks people out more than waves. They keep waiting for you to explain, to soften it, to fill the silence with reassurance. You don't. You let your behavior speak. You let patterns communicate. You let consistency do the convincing. And, once you realize that control lives in restraint, everything changes. You don't rush the next move because anticipation is working overtime for you. People project onto silence whatever they fear most. You just exist, composed, detached, watching the board, feeling the balance tilt more with every second you don't react, every moment you allow the weight of your decision to settle deeper into the room, knowing that whatever happens next is already influenced by the fact that you moved once without asking, without warning, without permission. And the echo of that move is still rippling through conversations, through hesitation, through eyes that keep flicking toward you, looking for cues that you're in no hurry to give. Because you already know how this plays out when someone realizes too late that power doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly and stays, because when that realization hits them, you can literally see it in their eyes. The recalibration, the quiet panic masked as casual indifference, the way their confidence starts depending on your reaction instead of their own certainty. They keep scanning you for signals, for permission, for some emotional leak they can grab onto, and you don't give them anything usable. That blank space, That's where authority breeds. You didn't steal control. Control drifted toward you when you stopped chasing outcomes, when you stopped needing instant resolution, when you understood that urgency is a tell and patience is a flex. People rush when they're afraid of losing something. You already dropped the attachment. That scares the hell out of anyone who relies on leverage built on expectations. And, there's this strange freedom in knowing you can walk away from almost anything. Conversations, deals, rooms, narratives. That freedom subtly infects everything you touch. People feel it when they realize you're not anchored to their approval. When they sense you won't overcorrect, won't chase clarity, won't beg to be understood. You let things land however they land. That's Joker logic. You don't fight the chaos, you choreograph around it. They keep replaying that one move in their head, trying to decode it. Was it instinct? Was it calculated? Was it emotional or strategic? That confusion keeps them honest. When people can't pin you down, they tread carefully. They start offering respect preemptively, like insurance. They start aligning themselves without being asked, just in case. And, it's wild how fast roles change when people realize you're okay with discomfort. Awkward silence? You sit in it. Delayed responses? You let them hang. Unclear reactions? You let them sweat. Most people crack trying to smooth things over. You don't patch tension. You weaponize it through restraint. You understand something most don't. Confidence doesn't need to be proven. It needs to be felt. And confidence that doesn't ask permission rewires the entire dynamic. That's why they pause mid-confidence around you. That's why jokes fall flat when aimed your way. That's why power posturing looks awkward in your presence. You're not impressed. And that's loud. Remember how they used to test you? Little jabs, subtle disrespect, probing comments wrapped in humor. That stopped. Not because you confronted it aggressively, but because your energy stopped rewarding it. There's nothing more disarming than someone who doesn't react the way the script expects. You rewrote the script by missing your cue on purpose. And here's the internal shift that seals it. You trust yourself completely. Not in a loud, motivational poster way, but in a grounded, bone-deep way. You trust your timing. You trust your reads. You trust that if things go sideways, you'll adapt without spiraling. That trust leaks into your posture, your pacing, your decisions. People feel safe around certainty. Even when it unsettles them, they start adjusting strategies around you, recalculating plans, softening demands, watching how far they can go without triggering a boundary they're no longer sure exists, but they know exists. That ambiguity is powerful. A visible fence invites challenge. An invisible one commands instinctive respect. And, you don't even feel like explaining this to anyone. You're past convincing, past educating, past defending. You don't need everyone on the same page. You just need the outcomes aligned. You let results carry the message. Results don't stutter. You notice the shift in small things. Invitations framed differently. Requests phrased gently. People asking instead of assuming. People listening instead of waiting for their turn to talk. That's not coincidence. That's hierarchy correcting itself in real time. You didn't steal control. Control drifted toward you when you stopped chasing outcomes. When you stopped needing instant resolution. When you understood that urgency is a tell and patience is a flex. People rush when they're afraid of losing something. You already dropped the attachment. That scares the hell out of anyone who relies on leverage built on expectations. And, there's this strange freedom in knowing you can walk away from almost anything. Conversations, deals, rooms, narratives. That freedom subtly infects everything you touch. People feel it when they realize you're not anchored to their approval, when they sense you won't overcorrect, won't chase clarity, won't beg to be understood. You let things land however they land. They keep replaying that one move in their head, trying to decode it. Was it instinct? Was it calculated? Was it emotional or strategic? That confusion keeps them honest. When people can't pin you down, they tread carefully. They start offering respect preemptively, like insurance. They start aligning themselves without being asked, just in case. And, it's wild how fast roles change when people realize you're okay with discomfort. Awkward silence? You sit in it. Delayed responses? You let them hang. Unclear reactions? You let them sweat. Most people crack trying to smooth things over. You don't patch tension. You weaponize it through restraint. You understand something most don't. Confidence doesn't need to be proven. It needs to be felt. And confidence that doesn't ask permission rewires the entire dynamic. That's why they pause mid-confidence around you. That's why jokes fall flat when aimed your way. That's why power posturing looks awkward in your presence. You're not impressed, and that's loud. Remember how they used to test you? Little jabs, subtle disrespect, probing comments wrapped in humor. That stopped. Not because you confronted it aggressively, but because your energy stopped rewarding it. There's nothing more disarming than someone who doesn't react the way the script expects. You rewrote the script by missing your cue on purpose. And here's the internal shift that seals it. You trust yourself completely. Not in a loud, motivational poster way, but in a grounded, bone-deep way. You trust your timing. You trust your reads. You trust that if things go sideways, you'll adapt without spiraling. That trust leaks into your posture, your pacing, your decisions. People feel safe around certainty, even when it unsettles them. They start adjusting strategies around you, recalculating plans, softening demands, watching how far they can go without triggering a boundary they're no longer sure exists, but they know exists. That ambiguity is powerful. A visible fence invites challenge. An invisible one commands instinctive respect. And, you don't even feel like explaining this to anyone. You're past convincing, past educating, past defending. You don't need everyone on the same page.